Hi there, welcome to the Healthy Church Staff Podcast. I'm Todd Rhoades, one of the co-founders over at chemistrystaffing.com, and your friend on this daily journey to build stronger, healthier church teams. Okay, I've got a confession to make to you. I lied to you on yesterday's podcast. I said today we're going to talk specifically about theology. We're going to mention theology today, but today I want to introduce, I mentioned yesterday, the 5 kind of things that we work with both churches and candidates here at chemistrystaffing.com to help churches and staff find together what we hope is a healthy long-term fit. By healthy long-term fit, we're talking 5 years or more. You've probably heard the stories. Maybe you've lived them. Chances are, if you're like me, you've lived them, where a hire looked really great on paper but fell apart in practice. Or if you're a person and, man, the church, it looked great on paper. It looked great, sounded great on the interviews. You got there and it's like, oh my goodness, what did I just move my family for? More often than not, those problems can be because one of these 5 pillars that I'm going to talk about today was out of alignment, okay? And that's part of, actually, that's what we do at Chemistry, is I'm going to mention these 5 pillars and unpack those for you just broadly today, and then tomorrow, starting tomorrow, and then part of next week, we're going to take a different episode for each of the 5 pillars and pull them out. But if something went awry, either in your hire or if you hired a new staff member and something didn't work out, or if you are a staff member and you went to a new church and it didn't work out, it's probably because one of these pillars was out of alignment. So we're going to dig in and we're going to discover what these 5 pillars are, number 1, and then number 2, how we can identify yellow flags and even red flags during the interview process to make sure that we get these 5 pillars right. And again, foundationally, what we say at Chemistry is that between the candidate and the church and the candidate, all 5 of these pillars have to be in alignment. If even one of these pillars is out of alignment, the chances of a healthy long-term fit go down substantially, okay? So let's start with a high-level view of what these 5 pillars are. Again, these are areas where alignment matters most between a church and a candidate and a church. Get these right, and you're setting yourself up for success. Miss one, and I tell you what, you're really rolling the dice. It probably is not going to work out, at least for a long-term healthy fit. Okay, here's the first pillar, theology. Theology is the foundation, right? Of course it is. It's a church. If your church and a person you're interviewing, a candidate, don't agree on core theological beliefs, it's going to lead to some tension or worse, some division. And I'm not just talking about the big stuff like salvation or authority of Scripture. Sometimes it's the smaller practical things like views on baptism or spiritual gifts that can trip you up. So what we do at Chemistry is we have all of our churches and all of our candidates fill out a theological assessment even before we start talking to them, even before we onboard start the search, even before we start talking to the candidate. And we ask them about 25 key theological questions. And we ask the church, we ask the candidate, we put those together, and we identify areas that there might be some misalignment, okay, so that we can at least start that conversation. What you don't want to do on any of these pillars is hire somebody or accept a job and then 6 months in figure out, oh crap, we don't align here. We want to identify those potential areas of misalignment before that happens, before the transaction takes place, and then at least talk about those things and make sure that you're going to be compatible. Make sure that you can turn that yellow into a green, or maybe you turn the yellow into a red flag and determine that, hey, theologically, this is just not going to be a good fit, okay? So the first pillar is theology. Second pillar is culture, okay? Culture fit is huge. Every church, your church, my church, has its own unique vibe, and not every person will thrive in every environment. And so maybe your church is super laid back and relational, but the person that you're interviewing is going to thrive in a much more structured, formal setting. That mismatch, it could work if you work things out and you have good discussions beforehand, but a lot of times that mismatch is just going to create a lot of tension, and they're never going to feel at home in your church, and you're never going to feel like they're a real part of the team. So theology and culture. The third is personality. Now, personality Might seem a little less important, but trust me, it matters. Somebody's personality impacts how they lead and how they work with a team and how they connect with people in your church and in your congregation. And a great fit on paper can fall apart if the personalities don't mesh. So we're going to unpack that in a future episode. We're going to do one episode specifically about personality and finding a good personality fit. So the 3 pillars so far: theology, culture, personality. The 4th one is skills and abilities. So here's the thing about skills. They're essential, but they're not the whole picture. A lot of churches will hire on skill, but they'll forget about theology and culture and personality, and that's a huge mistake. It's not the whole picture. The candidate needs to have the right abilities to do the job, but you also need to assess how they use those skills. Are they humble? Are they teachable? Do they complement the rest of your team? Skills are really important. And then 5 is chemistry. Chemistry, that's the secret sauce, right? That's why we named our company Chemistry Staffing. This one, you might think it might be a little harder to define, but this is what we tell churches and candidates. We can, at Chemistry Staffing, we can work with you and your church, we can work with you as a candidate, and we can help you come to a pretty good conclusion on whether or not there's a match or a mismatch on theology and culture and personality and skills, those first 4 pillars. But this fifth pillar, this chemistry, this is boots on the ground, right? This is meeting face to face. This is shaking hands and sitting across the table. This is sharing with your team and sharing with your staff and sharing meals together and determining, maybe it's a day or a few days, a weekend, to determine, is this somebody that is going to be a great fit? Is this somebody that I want to work with? Is this somebody, if you're interviewing, is this a church where I would want my family to go? Is this a church where, I'm just all in, I'm so excited about it? If you're looking to hire, is this a person that I'd love to have over to my house, have them and their family over to my house on Tuesday night for a barbecue? Those kind of chemistry questions. It might seem like it's a little harder to find, but it's that intangible sense that somebody they just fit. They connect with me, they connect with the team, they connect with the leadership, they connect with the congregation in a way that just feels natural. It's not pushed or shoved or forced. And let me tell you, when chemistry is missing, you can have theology and culture, you can have personality, you can have all the skills and abilities in the world, but if there is no chemistry, you're going to feel it. You're going to feel it. So that's why these pillars are so important. They give you a framework for evaluating candidates holistically. It's really easy to get tunnel vision in one area, like, oh man, they're a great communicator, or oh man, I really like their theology. But if you neglect the other pillars, you could end up with somebody who's technically strong, but a poor fit for your church. I don't know how many times I've heard people coming off that call me and say, Todd, we made a bad hire, but I just liked him so much. I laughed at his jokes. Cool guy. He's just not a fit here. Cool gal. This just isn't the church for her. So, practical application. Okay. Bottom line. Here's what you need to do this week. If you're in the process of hiring or even just thinking about it, take some time to evaluate how these 5 pillars play out in your church. And I want you to ask yourself 5 questions. You might have to go back and rewind a little bit on this to get this. But here are the 5 questions. Number 1, what's your non-negotiable when it comes to theology? What are the hills that you will die on theologically? Number 2, what's unique about your church culture? What does your next person, your next hire, need to know about your church's culture? And if you're looking at a new church job, what do you need to know about the church's culture that you're thinking about going on staff with? Number 3, what type of personality is really going to thrive on your team? Number 4, what skills are truly essential, have to have skills in order to do this job? And then number 5, how are we going to assess chemistry during the hiring process? Write those down, share them with your team, get some clarity on these areas before you start interviewing, and you'll save a ton of headaches later. I'd love to hear how these pillars resonate with you. Again, in the next 5 podcasts, we're going to take 1 pillar per podcast and break those down. But I'd love to hear how these resonate with you. And don't forget, if your church needs help hiring and you want chemistry staffing to kind of help you implement our process to bring these 5 pillars into your interview process, reach out to me. If you're a candidate and you're looking for a new role in 2025, reach out to me as well. Just podcast@chemistrystaffing.com. podcast@chemistrystaffing.com. We're in the middle of a series. The next 5 episodes are going to be taking a look at each one of these 5 pillars, so don't forget to hit that subscribe button. Tomorrow we're going to deep in, this time I am being honest with you, we're actually going to dive into that first pillar, which is theology. We're going to talk about how to navigate theological alignment without getting stuck in the weeds. It's going to be a really good conversation. I hope you'll be back for it tomorrow here on the Healthy Church Staff Podcast. Have a